Good morning again, and welcome to Table Talk with Brenda Perryman. I'm Brenda Perryman, and I'd like to introduce you to my two co hosts this morning.
Good morning, Tamika Ashford, president for the Ashford Agency, a boutique PR firm.
Wow. Good morning, Councilman Rodney Patrick, right here in the city of Highland Park.
All right, welcome everyone. We have a lot, our table is set. We have a lot to talk about today, but as is our tradition, on this day in African American life in Detroit by Mr. Ken Coleman, we're going to read a couple of excerpts. On this day, April 15th, William W. Ferguson, an African American man, enters a restaurant managed by Edward G. Guys. After being seated, Ferguson is told by a waiter, "I can't wait on you here." Ferguson replies, "What do you mean by that?" Waiter responds, "We cannot serve your kind of people here." Ferguson, though through his attorney, David Augustus Straker, will challenge the policy. The Michigan Supreme Court will side with him and rule in 1890 that separation by race in public places is illegal. And that's the August. And then today they have the Augustus Straker organization that the lawyers, the black lawyers, have to help people in need. So Augustus Straker goes back a long, long time. Now, in 1981, nationally syndicated Hollywood columnist Bill Lane reports that dancers Bobby Johnson and Cheryl Peoples have won the Dance Fever Finals competition. How many of you out there remember Dance Fever? I know I was. I do.
I was a dancer.
Oh, yeah, I was too.
Well, I'm the youngest one here. I don't remember that.
I know you're too young and you're a youngin'. But also a Highland Parker, Lauren Harper won that too. He won Dance Fever, also a former student. Anyway, the couple was in California recently to tape the show. We're so overjoyed that we won, says 18-year-old Peoples, who frequently struts her stuff on the Scene dance show that airs on WGPR TV 62. Dance Fever aired locally on WDIV. Channel 4. I don't think that those call letters were always DIV. I'm not sure. Now, everybody, I don't know how, there's so much to talk about with what went on with Michael Brown and Ferguson and so forth. Michael Brown was the 18-year-old young man who was gunned down, and I'm going to say it, gunned down by a policeman in Ferguson, Missouri.
Yeah.
And ironically, before it ever hit the news, one of my former students who lives down there put the picture on Facebook. And she says, "I don't know what he's done, but this young man's been laying here a long time." And that was before it even hit the news. And this young man was laying out there. And to be riddled, I think he was shot multiple times.
You know, once again, here we go in America where there is very little regard for life as it relates to African American men. As I said before, I've never seen an African American police officer go in and kill a young Caucasian male. I've just never seen it in the history books. And I just feel like there needs to be a great deal of sensitivity training with the various police departments across America. I'm not sure how this is even acceptable. And it just seems like the only thing that's changing are the names and the dates on the calendar, but year after year it's the same thing.
Well, it's tough because there was a time where we kind of felt that maybe if the quote unquote criminals may have been dealt with unfairly in these kind of situations, but now anybody, any African American male, innocent, just minding his own business, not being involved in anything illegal or anything, is in danger as well. Personally, at this point, I'm getting kind of scared. I'm very concerned about my own welfare. I could not be doing anything and find myself in the middle of a situation where I literally potentially could be laying in the street like that video show with the blood running down the street right in the middle. I mean, it's amazing. It's incredible. It's very unfortunate.
You know, as a mother of a son, and I have 3 grandsons that I think about how we have to arm them mentally and
Yes,
emotionally
yes.
against what they could face just because of the color of their skin.
Just because, and these are the cases that are reported. I know there are countless reports of men that have encountered, being wrongfully pulled over by the police. And even if you have your PhD and you've done everything according to what America said that you should do, you're still subject to being pulled over and even having your life threatened. This happened to my brother. He lives out in Washington, D.C. He was out jogging, and he just said all of a sudden, like 4 or 5 police officers just had him down on the ground. And so
For what?
just because he was jogging, and it just seemed as if, why are you in this particular
Well,
area?
they see black men jogging. It looks like they're running away from something. They
And-
act like they're
yeah.
running away from something.
And I forgot to mention he did have on a hoodie. So my brother is 30-something, African-American male in Washington, D.C., jogging. So,
Well, the first night or one of those nights, rioting happened. I mean, well, kind of looting.
Right.
Let's just say that. I mean, if you've ever been through a riot, that wasn't quite a riot, but it was a looting went on.
All right.
My son, we were talking about it, and he said that he was so dismayed at the looting because that took the attention off of Michael Brown. It just totally took it away. And now something else happened. The police became paranoid, and they got out there. They had snipers aimed at the marchers and so forth. Well, that situation has indeed changed somewhat because, and the police chief. Did any of you see the police chief?
Sometimes we have to be, just have to be blessed with what we have. I know a lot of folks aren't happy with our current police chief, with at least Detroit's police chief. But when we see police chiefs from across the nation, and especially the one in Ferguson, we have to just count our blessings with what we
Yes.
got.
Yes.
This is amazing. I mean, at a certain point, when does this kind of thing end? I mean, the situation with the young man in New York. We have
Eric
situations, right? We have situations throughout the country, like was stated earlier, that they are not even reported. We were hoping during the Rodney King piece, which was over 20 years ago, that finally we got video of a situation that we've been talking about that's been occurring for years. The video was there, the beating took place, and they still were not convicted of that. But here we are, fast forward to 2014, and we have similar situations with deaths occurring on the other side, and we don't know what to do. I'm concerned. I don't know what to tell my young brothers out there. I really don't know what to say right now. As of today, I don't know what to say.
Well, it's almost as if we have to build a program and teach them what to do, what to say, and somebody to always have a camera out, always have that phone. I mean, it's just amazing. And the fact that they're just releasing today the name of the officer.
Yeah.
And that's because it's unbelievable as I watch their police chief and the fact that they have only 4 or 5 African Americans. I heard it was 3, but then I heard it was 5. So I don't know, regardless of a 57 or whatever police department, just a few. But African American, Indian, or whatever, they should be fair. And this guy went ballistic, I think. And how are you going to keep on shooting someone when they're down?
because he can. And again, this is where the checks and balances have to be in place for the police departments across America.
Right.
It has to be in place. Otherwise, we're going to have the same conversation in September, October, November, and December, and so forth. So, you know, I just feel like the policies across America are very lax, and they do it because they can get away with it. And I feel like, you know, as African Americans, a lot of times we galvanize and we make a lot of noise, and then after a while you don't really hear anything. And so that's my concern. You know, what happens once things kind of simmer down and we go back to business as usual?
Well, they're still talking about, well, the parents ask for peace. But you know, when you see somebody out there with all those guns pointed at you, it brings out something in you, don't you think?
I agree. I was talking with someone earlier about the situation. They said, well, if they could be in that parent's ear, they would tell them, hey, you could go ahead and say what they want you to say initially, but then you need to speak up and say, look, you all go ahead, because this needs to be known throughout the world about what was going on here. Go ahead and fight. Get out here and get it done. And what's amazing is that I saw a video of the 3 or 4 police officers, the African American police officers on the force, holding the line before the in front of the protesters, and they had those guys in front,
You know,
and the other
just
guys
like
were
the
in back.
movies, the black man gets killed first.
Right.
You know, I mean, jeez.
Right. So we got to go to the back of the bus, but we're in front of that line now.
I mean,
So,
it was just tokenism. It's
Yeah.
it's tokenism
Yeah.
over there. And the thing about it is, I look at the fact that here, but for the grace of God, could have been you,
Right.
could have been anybody, and I'm very concerned about that. And what's the deal with? I think that was indicative of the way police were treating young black men anyway. I mean, maybe not shooting them, but treating them cruelly in that city, and in a lot of cities. Because Eric Gardner, how many times he said it? 11 times he said, "I can't breathe," and they still held
They
it down.
continued.
Yeah.
Continued on. And I saw that the actors and actresses in New York did a protest.
Yes.
Did you see that?
Yes.
Where they actually did poetry right there in New York City. So I think some of the celebrities are coming out. I would like to hear a little bit more. I know one of the rappers got on Twitter, and I think Wiz Khalifa and whatnot got on Twitter and said, you know, that they
Well,
need to
they
stop
just
with the
arrested
pandemonium.
him last week.
Right,
I
so
don't know. I don't
not
know.
sure how
Wiz.
credible he is. But it amazes me how quiet Hollywood is, and a lot of times those rappers or whatnot have a great influence on the African American community. And you know, back in the day when you had the Harry Belafontes and the Diane
And the
Carrolls, they were
Sidney
very
Poitiers.
absolutely, they were very vocal and very instrumental, and they helped to fund these type of things. And I don't like to necessarily call it a protest. I find it ironic that in certain communities, you know, they'll call it a vigil, a prayer vigil.
Well, I call it a
like
movement.
Exactly, but you know, when you use certain verbs, adjectives, then it
Language.
absolutely. So I find that ironic too, and those are the terms that they use to really engage the police officers. They're going to be out there protesting versus it's going to be a prayer vigil or folks coming together. Then I even saw where they were trying to stop the quote-unquote protests taking place during the evening hours. Never before in America have I seen that happen before. How can you tell a person or a group of persons when they can come together? I've just never seen that before. So
that's a good point. I would like to see that some local folks, maybe the African American ball players for the St. Louis Cardinals, and if they're not doing anything already, it's time for those folks to step up. I have to shut it down mentality.
Right,
So if
I
those
do
folks
too,
can come
right.
up and speak on it and say, well, you know, I'm not going to play today because until this situation in my backyard, because I play for the St. Louis Cardinals, until this situation is resolved, I'm not going to play. And resolved in a respectful way that everyone can find the solution.
Now, Rodney, have you ever been stopped?
Sure, I've been stopped. Absolutely. I mean, that's just one of the things that we have to go through.
I mean, justifiably or not?
Well, I'm not sure if it was justified or not. All I know is that being an African American male, that's something that we have to be aware of. My uncle always gave me some advice, and I'm not going to repeat that advice, but
Well, why'd you tell us?
no, tell us
Okay,
what's
you
the
take the bad words out of it and see if you can.
there's just some things that African American males need to know. If they're stopped at night on a dirt road or somewhere that's desolate and isolated, that no one's around, just to be prepared to deal with in that situation. Because if there's some aggression shown by the officer, you need to be prepared.
Absolutely. And some people, they think just because police officers were involved, police officers are right. And that's not always so. They're human. And this police officer who shot this young man, I think he's inhuman personally.
And I find it ironic that they are actually protecting this person's name. I mean, have they released his name
They're
yet?
releasing it
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
But after how many days? I mean, I just find that ironic that the fraternity, the police fraternity, you know, even in wrongdoing, will still protect their very own.
Well, my nephew, who's the New York City cop, just like the ones who did Eric Garner, who killed him, he said that guy is in so much trouble. He might as well say he's out of the police department and he's going to get indicted.
Wow.
He was saying that. I think that everybody needs some checks and balances.
Yes.
The citizens, because a lot of people are saying, okay, there's so much black on black crime. Absolutely. And I think that's another thing that we need to get out and, take back the town.
Right.
We have to take back the town.
Right, I agree. That's the shut it down mentality. I mean, in Chicago right now, with everything that's happening in some of their neighborhoods, especially on the west side, there needs to be a shut it down mentality. And,
Right.
and that's more of a protectionism for us, so we won't kill each other. And that's not occurring. That needs to happen as well.
But also with that, we have to change the mindset of that people who kill each other, people who fight each other. And a lot of times it starts with people drinking and so forth. I know someone right now, a relative of theirs was drinking, he and his friend, and it led to a fight. And he took a weapon and kept on beating. I'm not going to say, what the weapon was, but kept on beating the friend down, hitting him and hitting him. They were both drunk, and it is now on World Star Hip Hop. And people are looking at. I don't know, something about worldwide hip hop. I've seen fights on there. Okay, I've read it. I've looked at a couple of. No, I see fights and it's like glorifying violence.
Well, I know even here in the city of Detroit on the east side, I was talking to one of the police officers, and he said that on a particular street on the east side that they had just been, that particular community had just been going crazy, so they had to send, over by the 9th precinct, and so they had to send a number of officers over there, and what happened was there was a situation where a couple of guys in that community were actually in the wrong. So based off of what was happening in St. Louis, when the police officer had to respond, the community was in an uproar. And so that's the other part is we know the gentleman, Michael Brown, the young man, he was killed, and it was no reason why he should have been killed. But I think that what's happening here in Detroit on the east side, that particular situation, and it hasn't been, made the media or anything like that, but situations where you try to take a wrong and make it right, that's where I have a problem.
I
with,
have that,
Yeah.
yeah, I do too.
Good point.
What in Highland Park, which is a small town, now Ferguson's a small town, I think it's bigger than Highland Park. But do you have problems with gangs?
Well, we have the normal youth exuberance and adolescence type problems. I mean, that's normal. Gangs per se, I have not been told of any problems with gangs in HP.
Good.
But gangs, of course, starts or could potentially start within the school system and that setup. And as we continue to shrink our school system, the possibility of the gang population is going to be decreasing.
Well, President Obama spoke out about it and everything, and a lot of people are not satisfied. They're still not satisfied.
I'm not either. I respect the president, but I feel like he could do more as the leader
What
of the
should
free
he do,
world.
though, to me?
I think it should be a state of emergency. I think how they pour funds in for everywhere else. I don't know if it's programming. There needs to be like a 10-point plan of action because this is a learned behavior. I think the police department needs to be dealt with. I think the communities,
definitely.
the leadership, I think it's various layers. And I feel like, even though
I think they're going to ask that police chief to resign. I think they should ask him to resign.
But I think we got to get to the root of the problem. I mean, that's one city, that's one police chief, one police officer. But again, my concern is that, in a few months, we're going to have this same conversation on Table Talk.
Gosh, yes. I'm so
We got to
worried
get to the
about
root of
it.
the problem.
But, a lot of stuff, I hate to say this, a lot starts at home. But then again, we teach our boys, if somebody hits you, you hit them back.
And
You
the
have
girls
to.
too, yes.
And the girls,
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have survived in this world. I was a peace-loving girl. Peace,
Right,
peace.
right.
I would not have survived the way some of these girls are.
Yeah, it's amazing. The videos I've seen some of those same videos that you've seen, and
See, I'm not the only one.
no, you're not the only one. It's almost captivating when you watch the first.
Captivated.
I'm
Well,
not captivated.
well,
I'm in disbelief.
I guess my point, and that's what I mean. I just really can't believe what I'm seeing. I mean, in high schools, we had fights and that kind of thing, but to have these things glorified and put on videos, it's very concerning. I mean, I have a
And that
niece.
tells you about the mentality.
Right, right. Well, some of these fights are set up. And then the person's videotape is already going to be there to make sure they get a good
I'm the
viewing of the fight.
cameraman.
Yeah, they're set up.
I saw that when I was teaching because we were making a film. Somebody came in and they asked could they use some of my students and asked me to play the counselor in it. And there was a fight in the hallway. I mean, it was the fight for the film. And then all of a sudden, my students took out the phones. I said, what are they doing? That's the first time I had seen that.
Yeah.
I said, we film them now.
Yeah.
I said, geez, I'm glad I'm not there either.
Well, you know, it's something that schools call it the, I think either it's called the 30-second fight or the 60-second fight, where they meet in the bathroom. Somebody's there to videotape it, and they fight for 30 seconds in the bathroom.
You're
No,
fighting for
I'm very
30
serious.
seconds.
I'm very serious because my sister, we had to let our niece know, look, you don't go to the bathroom by yourself because we don't know what's going to be waiting. And for her to be in the second grade, she's a big second grader.
Second grade.
There are fights that are set up, I promise you. It's called a 30-second or a 60-second fight where they're videotaped. And
What city?
it's all over. It's all over. It's all
Yeah,
over.
I believe it.
Yeah.
If you say so, I believe
Yeah.
anything. Because these little second grade girls are, some of them are actually wearing their little nail polish. They got makeup in their little purses and stuff like that. And they're arguing over things that older girls argue about. So it's starting early, and maybe they're patterning
Their
something
mama.
from home or something from television.
Right. Well, let me clarify that. She's in the second grade, but she's big for a second grader. So if she's in the bathroom and there's a fourth grader in the bathroom, they may try her, not knowing that she's only in the second grade. And so, but these things are occurring in just about every school. Principals are dealing between that and all the sexting and texting that's going on. It's a whole nother world. It really is.
Sexting and texting. Oh, goodness.
That's a whole nother.
Yeah, it's a whole
That's
nother
a
show.
whole
That's a whole nother
stuff.
table talk.
Okay, I kind of went straight to Michigan because we had these floods this week, and you know, everyone knows I was a victim, or my house was, I mean, just ridiculous. I started to put it on a DVD so you could see it, how much stuff and the madness. And we couldn't even get down in the basement, really. I couldn't get down there, and it was just terrible. Then when we got down there to start the water heater, that wouldn't work, and so forth. So, but Rodney, you said something on my earlier show about the flood and FEMA. And tell the audience what FEMA stands for. Do you know?
FEMA is the Federal Emergency Management Agency, I believe.
Right.
And so what they do anytime there's a natural disaster in any particular city or rural area, once the state recognizes there's a state of emergency and they declare that, FEMA is eligible to come on in and assist from the federal government level to rectify the situation or to at least ease some of the results from
So
the
where were you when
destruction.
that happened, when the rain came?
I was downtown.
Oh,
And I couldn't get on 75 because 75 was backed up all the way past 36th District Court. I tried to get on Woodward. That didn't work. I made a left on Temple and took Cass all the way down to Grand. Then got on Second and brought that all the way home. Got in the house after about an hour. I got some phone calls from my neighbors, looked outside. We get floods from time to time when there's some heavy rain on our block. But this was more than there's ever been before. The water had actually gotten up to my front steps in my house, and my car was in the driveway. It was like maybe another foot from my car. I said, "Oh, this is different. Hold on, let me get my clothes on and get out here and see what's going on." And like I said, we normally have those floods, but everybody on my block had their basement flooded except for one house. They had a sub pump.
yeah, well, even the sump pump didn't help a lot of people.
Yeah. This was just too much water and too small a window of time, and so the system just can't handle it.
Well, and there was something else that was down in Royal Oak. That's why they said there was something, I forgot the name of this thing, that was down or it wasn't on in Royal Oak. Because Huntington Woods, I mean, every place.
Yeah.
And so people made some big money this week, the people who were helping people.
Yeah.
Where were you, Tamika?
I had just gotten home, and so
good.
the rain was really bad. But I do live in a high-rise building, so I wasn't, impacted by it. But there was some flooding in the parking garage where I live at. But
I can't understand the people who got on the freeway and end up their cars. I mean, why would you go down onto? Well, some people probably were on the freeway
yeah,
already, but then I would have probably had a heart attack in my car if I saw the water coming up like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I would have as well. I have a smaller vehicle, and so I know I don't have a room for much water resistance at all.
But
so
I
have to be very
can't swim.
careful.
Can you swim?
I cannot swim because I left Highland Park High School and went somewhere.
Well, I was there.
If I would have been there, I would have learned how to swim. That was mandatory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was, a lot of people lost their cars, and we were talking about this earlier, about the car lots that got flooded.
Okay.
There was one they had on the news, all the cars got flooded.
Right.
We're hoping that the dealer was telling them that they took a big loss.
Yeah.
I hope they're not going to try and sell those cars anywhere.
I hope not either.
Yes, I hope integrity steps in, but get a Carfax, please.
But a lot of people do not have insurance. See, they'll get insurance, but they won't get flood insurance.
Right. Right. Well, normally we haven't needed that though.
Right.
So much, and when it comes to infrastructure, if it's identified where a municipality, I think Mayor Fouts and Warren talked about this, if it's identified where the municipality is at fault because the faulty infrastructure or the crumbling infrastructure, then the assessment may be different, where they may be able to recover some of that through some funds that may be available. However, because this was more definitely an act of nature, it was, again, too much water at one time, I can't see that happening. However, maybe FEMA could step in and provide some assistance. I have a phone number for Highland Park residents, if I could provide that.
Of course.
Please, Highland Park residents, call 252-0050, extension 240. Let me repeat that, 252-0050, extension 240. Provide your basic information about what happened and whatever other questions that may be asked of you. And then FEMA representatives are supposed to be coming in at some point over the next few days to have conversations with the folks that took those phone calls and your basic information and do an assessment to find out if you're eligible or not.
Now, can people outside of Highland Park call that
This is
number?
this is specific to Highland Park.
Okay.
Well, Detroit should have their number.
I'm sure they have them. And for Detroit residents, contact FEMA or contact the city of Detroit as well. Absolutely.
Wow. Yeah, definitely, definitely. You know, the toll on your emotions can be something too. When you see pictures that you had, tons of pictures. I've always had tons of pictures. I lost pictures. Just keepsakes, family keepsakes and stuff that you lose so bad. And then that smell.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And if you have carpet in your basement, you better take it up.
Yeah.
I know people who didn't, said, oh no, they're not going to do it.
Well, I'm going to give mine a couple more days. I have rugs in my basement. Again, my basement's finished. I did do the wet vac, and I'm going to try to find out if it could handle itself for the next couple of days. When I hit my front door, though, there's a smell that radiates from the basement. I'm not happy about that.
Well,
So
I
if it
had
doesn't work,
professionals come and clean it, but I opened the basement door and it was okay, but I said, I guess it was so in me that maybe I got to check it out, because they'll have to come back if I keep on smelling things.
Yeah.
My mother says after they clean it up, turn on the heat. She says turn on the heat because it'll dry it up quicker.
Interesting. Now, I don't have any radiators in my basement, so I'm not quite sure if that's going to work for me. I guess I could try it.
Oh, okay.
The steam
I have
heat.
forced air, so
Oh.
I don't know. I don't know. It's just amazing. But you cannot, with the winter we had and with this summer, you can't deny climate change.
Yeah,
Oh,
this is true.
absolutely, absolutely. It was interesting to hear the comments from the governor when he took a tour of our great state, and it just appeared as if, I don't know if he thought it was really a sense of urgency there, but it was really kind of interesting to hear his comments.
And on a radio show, he said, well, I do know about storms. He says, a branch fell on our house and put a hole in the roof, and we had some leakage on our lake house.
Our lake house,
Our
yeah.
lake house. I said, oh. I said,
Yeah.
yes, my house, which sits on the Riviera.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
All that did was remind me of the Republican debates when Mitt Romney had a discussion with Rick Perry and turned to him and said, "How about a $10,000 bet?
I know.
That's not in my book." And,
It was
and,
just
and
so-
who has $10,000 just laying around besides you, Ms. Perryman? Who else just has $10,000 just laying around? It was
I
just
know.
unbelievable.
I know. Besides me, wait a minute. No. I wish. I'm just wondering if your insurance doesn't cover everything, would FEMA be there to help you out?
And how much? I mean, if they help you out, what's the dollar amount that they're going to give you?
Because I'm thinking about clothes and
Yeah.
stuff like that. All my winter clothes were down there.
Well, I hoped everyone, while they were putting their items out, took pictures of the
Oh, I
items they
took.
were putting
Oh,
out.
honey, I
That's what I
got
would advise
the.
everybody.
I got the SLR out,
Good.
and I sent a couple. One of my former students from Highland Park came over, and I had him go downstairs. I said, "You go downstairs
Good.
and take some photos." Okay, Belle Isle has been under state protection or whatever, the leasing, for 6 months. Has Belle Isle changed?
Well, Miss Perryman, I was at Belle Isle this past Sunday, and I have to say I really enjoyed myself. I went there close to about 8 p.m. or so and sat over by the water fountain, and it was a really nice vibe. They had the ice cream truck out, and it didn't feel, I mean, I didn't see a lot of police presence, but I'm sure they were there, but it felt lax. It felt good to be at Belle Isle, and so I can tell a big difference as to how I felt, you know, 6 months ago when the state took over, and I just felt very uncomfortable driving like at 10 and 2 versus this past Sunday. It just felt more engaging and more approachable to be there. So I enjoyed myself.
Well, what were some of the things that you used to see that you were glad you didn't see anymore?
I didn't see the pandemonium. I didn't see the brothers on the strip. That was like, it was no one there, and it just felt more family focused, more family oriented. So
Family friendly.
absolutely, yes.
You know, we really got to decide what we want when it comes to a situation with like Belle Isle. We want to maintain control, but we don't want to most certainly step in and admonish the folks that are doing destructive things on the island. We hesitate to do that. But then when the other person comes in and wants to take over the island and clean it up and do things, then we don't want that.
Yeah,
So
I
we have to
didn't
kind of
understand
decide
that.
what we want.
That I didn't understand.
Right.
And I should have understood it, but I just didn't understand that. That people got so mad because people were cleaning it up and so forth.
That's
Well,
what
I
I'm.
think
Yeah.
people, there's an element of fear because, as I've said before, I think that, you know, Detroit has to be careful that you don't get rid of the folks who have been here and that have
Absolutely.
invested blood, sweat, and tears and years before it was cool to be here, because it wasn't so cool for folks to be here in the 90s.
And another thing with the police, and that's a big fear, with the way police have been acting
Yeah.
for many years. The idea of getting stopped on Belle Isle and harassed on Belle Isle, that can really, 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 really be bad. So hopefully things are better. What do you out there think? What do you out there think? Do you think it's better? Do you think it's worse? What do you think? They've had 1,191 traffic stops, 108 citations, verbal warnings, 1,103 verbal warnings, 19 felony arrests, 80 fugitives arrested, and 8 weapons arrests. So, I mean, that's something.
That is something. And again, what do you want? What do folks want? I mean, for a fugitive to feel so lax that he or she wants to go hang out at Belle Isle like
Right.
nothing's wrong, but then they get arrested, we can't blame the state police for doing their job in that sense. But,
Right.
you know, this is a possibility of a fugitive that could have done some destruction in the neighborhood or
That's
to someone's life. We don't know. So people have to really decide, what do they want? Now, when we had control of it, or when I say we as in the city of Detroit, and they controlled it from a municipal standpoint, no one wanted to have a discussion about charging to get on the island and that kind of thing. But from a municipal budgeting standpoint, I can tell you that parks are suck budgets dry because there's not much of a return for the money that's given
Right.
to the park. And so when that slice of pie is cut to the park, the city doesn't get a return, and so the park really needs to pay for itself. Some kind of way you have to have some type of mechanism where Belle Isle could kind of be slipped away from the budget where it could kind of just pay for itself.
I remember years ago using using the bathrooms at Belle Isle, and I wasn't afraid to walk in. And they've reopened the bathrooms. Well, 12 of the 17 public restrooms were renovated and reopened. Of course, I went in one about a few weeks ago, and it's still. All I could tell you is before you go in, get your breath and just go in, and I mean, oh God, I was.
Just hold your breath.
But still, it looked nice. It just wasn't clean as
Okay.
I wanted it to be.
Right.
They have trash barrels were removed from the island's canal. Repairs were made to the conservatory, the casino, and the Welcome Center, which was the former police station, and the White House. That's the administration building.
Right.
And over 200 hazardous trees were removed. So I have a passport. I went on and bought one.
Okay.
I mean, all it is a little P on your little tab. How are
Right.
they going to see that? That's kind of
Who's there
crazy.
to check? But you know, one thing I'm happy that they're catching criminals. I mean, the felonies, the fugitives. But when I look at the traffic stops, why are they being pulled over? I mean, if we were to do some type of data, I would be interested to know. this
Yeah, were they the
191,
speed
like,
limit stops
am I
or
being
what?
pulled over because I went one over the speed, or because I look suspicious, or I mean, what are the guidelines for pulling the person over? Just because you feel like it, that, you know.
They thought you were a little person. See it over the steering wheel.
Right,
No,
right,
it's-
you know.
it's just-
Now, I was thinking that I wasn't going to say that.
Because you know how I felt. I told you how I felt out there, and I'm a law-abiding citizen. So if I felt that way,
Well,
Yeah.
well, let me tell you, I think that comes from the state police not being involved with community policing
Right.
versus the municipal police that's their training, and they're highly regarded in that sense. State police, they see an infraction, they see something wrong, and they're going to stop you and pull you over and possibly give you a ticket for a simple infraction. That's what they do. Municipal police, they have more autonomy in that area.
Oh, speaking of that, and we didn't talk about this when we were talking about Ferguson, Missouri. You know, his last name is Johnson. He's head of the state troopers or something. They came in. They've had the police stand down, and the state troopers came in. They were much more cordial. They fraternized with the people, and last night everything was very peaceful.
Good.
You know, because it wasn't that antagonistic thing.
Right.
I mean, it was like we're going to put our foot on your neck.
Right.
I hope we never have anything like that happening here in Detroit. Okay, I was kind of disturbed by this story where that little 10-year-old boy is believed to have shot his father in the back because his father was abusing his mother.
yeah, I saw that. I didn't, read the full story, but just my take on it. Obviously, I was not in the home. I don't know what the home life was like.